This is FinTech Futures reporting from London and ahead of the Sibos conference taking place this year in Frankfurt in Germany. I'm joined by Michelle Cowan of Standard Chartered. Michelle, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Well, just to get started, would you like to quickly give us an introduction to yourself and your role at Standard Chartered?
Yeah, so my name is Michelle Cowan. I am the UK and Europe Cash Market Manager. So I lead commercialization for our cash management business in Europe.
Excellent. So one of the talks Standard Chartered is taking part in at Sibos this year focuses on ISO 20022. We've been talking about that for what seems like a while now, to the point that I feel like I've heard about 15 different ways of pronouncing ISO 20022. But with the deadline coming for that now for November 2025, for that coexistence period, how would you say the transition has been globally?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We have been talking about ISO 20022 for a while, and it's certainly not new. It's been around for nearly 30 years. And in fact, the European banks were very much the front runners as they used ISO to embed in their payment systems, such as SEPA. So it's not new in that respect. It's just become a really key talking point as it's been rolled out for our cross-border payments, as well as various high-value payment schemes across the market. So it's been very, very topical in that sense. Right now, we're about 2 months away from the deadline of the coexistence period. And I think if I had to pick one word that would describe the progress to date, it would probably be exponential. So if you look back, and we've had data shared with us from SWIFT, at the beginning of the coexistence period, about 15% of the transactions were going in MX format. The latest data as of July shows that we're about 49%. So in essence, it's taken the industry over 2.5 years to go from 15 to 49. And the industry is going to have to take the next 4 months to go from 50 to get the remaining 50% that we need to meet the deadline. So there's still a lot to go. So the global adoption rate has really varied depending on the market, whether it's developed or emerging markets, or the bank size, because it has been a very major change for many institutions to go through. And I think if the local domestic high value system has migrated, that has helped to some extent. But the reality is that there has been a big degree in the breadth and the depth of the migration. Some banks are going fully native, some banks are using converters, some banks are relying on the SWIFT contingency measures. So the reality is that in many instances, we're still seeing empty messages in an ISO wrapper.
Excellent. So what would you say are the key benefits then of ISO 20022? And when it comes to that data quality, how important is having that rich data then for that?
Yeah, so as a reminder, we're going from a really limited number of fields in the old MT format to over 1,500 fields in the new MX format. And some might say, well, isn't that actually overcomplicating it and making it complex? And the key is you have to get the data in the message in the first instance, and that's going to come from the end user, which itself is a big change. So we've got to get the data into the messages, and then it's the quality of the data. And that's key in terms of moving from unstructured to structured. That really brings that standardization. So once you get the data inputs and you bring the data quality, then you can overlay that with tools such as AI that allow you to automate and make it a lot more easier to actually use the data. So there's that component. Then secondly, it's the richness of the data. So we're getting a lot more data points now, which means we can get a lot more statistics. A lot more statistics means a lot more deeper and more richer insights that we can provide. And then ultimately, organizations and policymakers can use to unlock and solve more complex problems than we haven't been able to. So we're just starting the journey in terms of the data and how we can use AI to really start seeing how powerful this can be.
Great. And you mentioned obviously at the start that we're still some way off from full global kind of coverage here, but what might global adoption of ISO 20022 mean then for cross-border payments going forward?
Yeah, so the reason, if we look back and say the reason why we embarked on this journey was really around global harmonization and to have our various market infrastructures speaking a common language. And ISO 20022 has been the foundational enabler for our G20 roadmap, where we try to achieve the targets around reduced cost, increase transparency, and improve accessibility to cross-border payments. So the reality is that we're still quite a long way from that. ISO 20022 has been a big leap in the right direction, but in order to achieve full interoperability and have that consistency in the experience, it's been a challenge because you've got various market jurisdictions, you've got different currencies, you've got different risk management frameworks. So ongoing collaboration amongst central banks, policymakers is going to be really important going forward as we continue to move cross-border payments in the right direction.
So what would you say are the key challenges then for firms when it comes to migrating to ISO 20022 then? How far are you along with the process at Standard Chartered as well?
Yeah, so for Standard Chartered, our major markets cover over 90% of our cross-border transactions. And in those major markets, we have gone completely ISO native. So as you can imagine, that's been a huge transformational project, complete front-end rewiring of our technology platforms, and it's been a big program of work for a number of years. So there's been many challenges in terms of ensuring that there's complete business alignment, not just within cash management and retail, but across all of the business lines. Given the number of markets that we operate in, then that adds another number of challenges because we've had multiple adoption timelines in terms of the high value payment systems going live in conjunction with CBPR Plus. So in terms of allocating of resources and business priorities, that's always been an ongoing challenge. And even when you are live, there are teething problems that happen, which you have to address. So it's been a huge book of work for us and, dare I say, painful at times, but throughout all of it, we've had to ensure that we remember what we're trying to do here. And it's been a monumental change for the industry as we try to achieve the global harmonization, which is a big step for the payment industry.
Excellent. Obviously, you mentioned that coexistence period ending in November 2025. What happens once we pass that? And what happens if companies haven't completed their migrations by then?
Yeah, as I just explained, it's not been it's a highly complex challenge to migrate and be ready. And the reality is that some banks just won't be ready. The good news is that there are many things that they can do. And I think the most important thing for banks to do if they're not ready is to reach out to either SWIFT or their banking partners. SWIFT is offering translator services, which the banks can use to ensure that their flows continue to be processed. But we know that comes with challenges in terms of data quality and data truncation. So we don't believe that should be the final solution. We believe that banks should continue to ensure that they can get their systems into a place where they are ISO native.
Excellent. So what tips or best practices would you give them for firms when it comes to navigating the migration to ISO 20022 then?
Yeah, as you could learn, because we've been on this journey for quite a while, there are a lot of lessons learned and best practices that we've picked up along the way. And I think we can summarize this in basically three main points. Firstly, it's really around understanding that it's a bank-wide program that is beyond cash management and ensuring that all the business lines really understand the changes that are happening. The second point would really about a clear transition migration strategy and change management, ensuring that the different technology partners are aligned. And again, that whether you decide to upgrade your existing system, whether you decide to do a new system, use the SWIFT contingency services, that again, that's clear and managed in the right manner. And I think the third point, I think anything, to drive success is really around a really clear communication strategy, both internally and externally. We've done a lot of engagement with our clients across the corporates and the FI side. And I think internally as well, it's been really important that key milestones are articulated to the various business areas, but also that just basic training is done. This has been a huge change for operations, for sales. So making sure that you have that training program across the organization is a really key part to a successful migration.
Excellent. And I guess what's next then for ISO 20022 as we look beyond 2025? How do you see it evolving and what potential applications does it have beyond payments as well?
Yeah, so as I said at the beginning, at the start of our conversation, this isn't the end, this is actually the beginning. This is where we tilt from mere compliance to how do we actually begin to leverage the data and the insights into better automation and also into better value added services for our clients. We will continue to see more mandatory fields being driven by local market regulations. For example, in the UK, we saw the go live on the LEI for bank-to-bank transactions. The outlook is that will be a requirement across all CHAPS transactions over time. And we expect to see that trend continue as well across the different local markets. But, you know, I think ISO is not just about payments, it's about a financial message standard. And I think if we look and see the application that it can be in either custody or securities transactions, and even if we could look at ISO as a potential bridge between the payments and digital assets and tokenization. So I think there are many applications that we can use beyond payments.
Excellent. Well, to finish off then, I mean, are there any more payments developments that you're working on at Standard Chartered at the moment you can tell us about now?
Yeah, so at Standard Chartered, we're invested in co-founder in Partior. Partior enables the bank to install blockchain on its payment processing system. So this means that it allows us to process transactions within Standard Chartered entities on a real-time 24/7 basis. Which is obviously very exciting. This will allow us to process our existing flows of our underlying clients and in time, our flows of our correspondent banking clients as well. So we're doing this at the moment for our Euro currencies, but we hope to expand this across other entities within Standard Chartered and other currencies.
Excellent. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks.